Right, hello and welcome to another Dauntless Development video. And this one is the first in a series of devlogs about my VR tower defense game that I'm currently working on. Now, when I say the first, this is more like devlog 0. I won't be talking about actual work I've done yet. This is more just discussing the plans for where it's going to go. So what you're looking at the moment, before I get onto that, is just the only enemy that exists at the moment. Might not make it into the final game. He's not exactly the highest quality. All the kind of I've made him using Make Human. It's the first time I've used it. But yeah, I'm not a 3D modeler, so I'm not I'm not well equipped to be making characters. But yeah, so I've got all the assets and stuff are just from the Make Human asset store on the website. So if you wanted to recreate this, you could. But yeah, so what I'm making is a VR tower defense that's heavily inspired by Sanctum. Is the main game I think of. Kind of Sanctum for the tower defense side of things, and the VR combat. I would like to see. I would like to try and implement some similar combat that you can see in games like Blade and Sorcery. So kind of physics based, like with magic and stuff like that. So yeah, Sanctum. One of the inspirations that I described is if you haven't heard of it, it's like a futuristic tower defense first person shooter hybrid, in which you can upgrade weapons and equipment, but also upgrade towers and build like a maze so that you can funnel your units through the maze, the enemy through the maze to protect your, I think it's called the core or something like that. It's some big orb, but basically it's just the same as any tower defense game. You can't let them get to your base. So I'm taking a lot of inspiration from that in terms of having the user be able to build walls and build towers on them and also upgrade their own equipment. But obviously it's in VR, so it's slightly different. And it's also like medieval fantasy, not futuristic. So I'll have like bows that work, because nothing's better than a bow in VR. Swords, maces, axes, all kinds of melee weapons. Definitely want a warhammer because I feel like crunching enemies with a warhammer is going to be very satisfying. So I want some ragdoll physics to make sure that you really feel the weight behind that hammer when you hit them. Because it's just fun, like when you see it on things like Blade and Sorcery, like a lot of the combat in that with the kind of ragdolls, it's very satisfying, which is why I kind of want to go along the same route with that. So yeah, this is the first. This is kind of my first foray into indie games, really. Besides a slight dabbling in trying to make a mobile game that I abandoned because I can't make mobile games. They are soul sucking. Nothing against anybody who does, but I can't. I mean, obviously, if it's a good game, I mean, I was making a typical kind of cash grab mobile game with ads and everywhere, ads everywhere, and I just thought, no, I can't possibly publish this onto any store. But yeah, so I want things like, as I said, I want like maze building. I've got a bow that's functional already, that I've been working on. I've done a little bit of work already. I want things so you'll get currency for like killing enemies. You'll be able to upgrade, maybe like leveling up. So like skills, perhaps like if you want to use the Warhammer, for example, you need to have a level so many levels in strength or something like that. I want kind of RPG style stats, so that there's a bit of progression in the game, so that you don't just kind of play it and it's not always the same. There is some kind of reason to keep going, something to achieve. So also the enemies. One thing that I'm not certain. I'll test this out because I imagine Sanctum probably did it like this for a reason. But one where I'm gonna kind of differ from how they handled it is when the enemies are moving through the maze, I'm gonna have it so that the enemies, if they come into your way, like if they cross paths with you, they will attack you and they'll like do a normal melee fight. Not every single one of them, so you won't get ganged by about 50 of them. So like my thinking is that you could have like maybe a tank style character, or you could have stats to draw more threat and have more enemies focus on you, so you can like slow them down. Um, but yeah, I mean, this is very early stages, so some of this might not happen. But I do want the enemies to obviously attack the player, because I want you to be able to, you know, kind of defend yourself, and feel like you're actually, well, yeah, it's a lot better, because if you're using melee weapons and you're just having to chase after them all the time, that's not going to be as fun as if they actually attack you. Um, so yeah, there'll be a limit though, as I said, because you don't want about 50 enemies, because then you'll just get overwhelmed, and that's not really great in VR. Um, I'm toying with the idea of having air units as well as ground units, but it's probably going to be easier to just have ground. Because I mean, the air units could only realistically be taken down with like magic or a bow, or the towers. Also, I don't think I mentioned, but yeah, I might have mentioned, but yeah, I'm going to be putting magic in. But yeah, so I think I'm probably going to avoid air units, just because it means that if you were a melee type character, you wouldn't be able to fight the waves, which is, I kind of want you to be able to play however you want. So if you want to just be, if you want to have no towers and just have a big broadsword or something, then that's up to you. I don't want to force you into doing something that you don't want to do, because at the end of the day, I want it to be fun. So yeah, the magic, I'm not sure how I'm going to handle that at the moment. I've got kind of two options. Well, two options that I'm thinking of. Maybe there's other potentials, but the two kind of main ones I'm thinking of is having like maybe like a spell tome, like a book that you can turn through the pages, and when you turn onto a page and then use your other hand, you can cast spells and stuff. Or potentially have dual casting in both hands in some way. But I'm also thinking about having staffs. I might end up, one thing I could do potentially that I've also thought of is maybe have like sort of the staff is a lower entry requirement and it's not as good, but once you start using the tomes, you've got to have like leveled up your magic stats. As I said, this is all very early days. So there'll be all sorts of different types of towers, like fire towers, like, kind of flamethrower towers, frost towers for slowing them down, arrow towers, or just standard arrow towers, lightning, like a Tesla kind of arc, like so kind of Tesla coils, I think they're called. But yeah, you see those a lot in tower defense games, the kind of arcing lightning, electricity, should I say. And some kind of catapult tower. They're the kind of the towers I'm thinking of at the moment. So some kind of long range AOE that's like slow firing for a catapult. Like you'll typically see things like mortars and stuff like missiles and stuff like in tower defense games that are a bit more modern. But for my kind of setting, I'm thinking I'm going to have a catapult. Although I could have some kind of magical mortar. I don't know. But yeah, catapult probably sounds pretty good to me anyway. So yeah, I'm going to have lots of different weapons. I've already got a bow that is almost entirely finished, but I'll cover that more in the next devlog. So I'm thinking about putting a crossbow in. I've never seen, I've not played a whole lot of VR games, honestly. I've played I've played a lot of, but I've not played a lot of them. I've not played a wide variety, but when I've been looking, I've never really seen any crossbows in VR. So I want to do a crossbow if I can. There might be a reason I've not seen them. It might be tricky, but I'd like to do it anyway because I think it would be quite interesting and more freedom. So staves, as I said, I want sword, shield, axes, maces. I want you throwables, so I want you to be able to throw anything basically. So if you throw your sword at an enemy, I want the sword to stick into the enemy, ideally, as long as it hits blade first. It doesn't, obviously not if it hits them with the handle, but yeah, I want to have stuff like that. And then spells is going to be a big thing as well. I'd like to have a quite good magic focus. I'm thinking about having you kind of get around using portals and stuff that you can place potentially, but I'm not so certain on that. I'm kind of I'm testing out a lot of different ways of kind of navigation, because obviously with VR you need to get the navigation correct, because what would be fun for me, because I don't get VR sick or anything like that. I think having like some kind of like zip line or like a grappling gun. But I know that they push me just to my edge, and I don't get VR sick on anything. So I know people who do suffer would suffer a lot. So that's probably something I'm gonna stay away from. I want to have nice, smooth, comfortable movement if possible. So things like ladders that you can climb, portals that you can just step in and it automatically takes you somewhere. Just stuff like that. So yeah, the idea is it'll kind of be in two phases, kind of like Sanctum. So you'll have a build phase and then a combat phase. So you'll have like say maybe a limited amount of time or as long as you want potentially to build walls, build towers, like upgrade your abilities and spend your currency on like kind of whatever you. Obviously, all that stuff's not implemented yet, so it depends on what I add. But anything you'd need to do to prepare, you could do that then. And then you'd go into the combat phase where the enemies would start coming through, the towers would activate and start attacking, and you could obviously fight the enemies. And then you just protect your base is the idea of it. So you can build a maze to try and slow them down. It's exactly what you expect from a tower defense game, really. Some things I'm wanting, as I said earlier, I want some ragdoll physics. So that shouldn't be too bad to implement, I don't think. And it'll make the combat a lot more satisfying. I would really like to have some kind of like if you like say slice at an elbow, you could chop off their forearm kind of thing. I want to see some limbs flying. I think that would be quite fun, quite immersive. And I need to do a lot in the way of creating sound effects, which is fun. But yeah, so I've got a kind of a timeline set out that's about 8 weeks that I think should be enough to get this into what I would call kind of an alpha state. So the game being fully playable and kind of, complete-ish, but then still, lacking some features. Like, I want this to be multiplayer, realistically. I don't think I'm going to get multiplayer within 8 weeks, though. So what I'm planning on doing is basically creating the game without multiplayer and making sure everything works before I get into a mess of like netcode, which could break everything, which could make things take a lot longer than what they need to. So I'd rather get something functional first before I mess around with multiplayer. So yeah. I think that's about it, really. So what I'm going to do is every Saturday, I'm going to release another devlog video, and it just discuss the progress I've made that week. And yeah, so that should keep me motivated to make sure that I get plenty of work done, have something to show every week. But yeah, so thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.